Hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco from Macabre Daily. And once again, I am beyond excited to be joined by two creators in the comic book world. We've got Jeremy Haun, who's a comic book writer, artist, and creator who's worked for nearly every comic publisher and company you could possibly think of in the industry on properties such as Constantine, Black Adam, Captain America, Spawn, one of my personal favorites, as well as being one of the co-founders of Ignition Press. And then with us also is Mike Tisserand. And I think, Mike, if I said, did I say your last name correctly?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, good. I've got a slightly difficult last name to pronounce, so I'm always a little bit mindful of that. But Mike is someone who has been a storyboard director and artist who's worked with the likes of Disney, DreamWorks, 20th Century. Well, yeah, we're about to say the Fox part, but that's no more. Nickelodeon, Netflix, and more on both features and series. Jeremy and Mike are here to talk about their latest collaboration, which is Murder Podcast, which is currently crowdfunding on Kickstarter for about one more week. So, Jeremy and Mike, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me this afternoon.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's my pleasure. Well, I know we don't have all the time in the world, so I'm going to dive right into my first questions. Jeremy, the first one's for you is, in reading some of the summaries you have up on the Kickstarter page about Murder Podcast, it became clear that this has been something you've been working on for a little bit of time, about a year and a half. And I'm just curious to get your perspective of what you think made true crime the perfect canvas for the story that you wanted to tell.
True crime is one of the things that genuinely actually horrifies me. I have spent the lion's share of my life loving horror. My heart bleeds for. I typically watch at least one horror movie a day. It's whether it's a new watch or a rewatch. Read a lot of it. Um, True crime gets to me like actual human pain and suffering gets to me on a whole other level. There's a reality to it where I can handle a ghost or a demon or something like that, chainsaw wielding maniac doing terrible things. But my God, the things that we actually do to each other as human beings gets to me on a level that I really can't handle. And it's something that like is in the zeitgeist. We now, everybody I know listens to podcasts on some level. Um, a lot of people that I know listen to true crime stuff, and I'm fascinated with this human need to see the dark side of things and process it. And I wanted to talk about it, but I just wanted to make it the kind of spooky that I can handle.
Yeah, well, I definitely love the concept as far as this idea that a podcast kind of goes away and then it comes back, even though the creators are supposed to be gone. And what happens, of course, is all the things that should happen in great horror, which is nothing good. So, Mike, over to you. Most likely, folks will know you from some of your kind of kid-friendly work that you've done on things like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, the Frog Prince, or sorry, the Dragon Prince, Big Hero 6, the series. I'm curious what enticed you to want to come more onto the macabre side of things.
Well, mostly it's not a subject that I've been able to venture into much. The television shows are all pretty kid friendly. And so there's sort of, I grew up with Spielberg, Jaws, Fincher, all those guys. And yeah, this sort of scratches an itch for me of just wanting to explore more of, sort of the darker side of things that you can't do so much in television and film.
Yeah, I mean, I just looked at your portfolio on your website, and I see that it's definitely you have it there in your Instagram as well. There's this burgeoning dark artist, looking to break out a little bit. So it definitely gives you an opportunity to flex that muscle, and really excited to see it as well. And as you said, Jeremy, true crime really is in the zeitgeist right now and has been for some time. I remember my mom used to read a lot of these Anne Rule books. I don't know if
Mm.
anyone knows who Anne Rule is nowadays, but she used to be the kind of go like there was VC Andrews if you wanted something dramatized, and there was, Anne Rule if you wanted the real shit, right? And
Yep. Yep.
And so I think now we've reached a point where it's, so much in conversation about everything that people do and interact with. What do you think that says about us as a society? And I'm curious to hear your thoughts here about this, Mike, as well. It's like, what is it that about true crime? What does it say about us that this is happens to be the thing we're so fascinated with?
I I talk a lot about like the whether it's crime itself or like I talk about a lot like going through the security line at the airport, right? It's the illusion of security, the
Right.
illusion of safety. I was just my wife and I were just watching a show called American Primeval. It's on Netflix. It's about like the Western expansion and this lady and her kid trying to get out west. She's in the Missouri area, right where I live. And we're watching this, and it's it's a historical drama, right? That is so horrific. We do the worst things to each other and always have done those. But somehow, right now, we're in a time where like we can maybe control that. We think we can control it. And I think there's a thing with true crime where people are they're looking at um they are looking at um these stories, and they're like, if I understand them, if I read them, if I listen to them, I can maybe not fall victim to that. And I think that's a really a thing that people really do. And I also just think beyond that, we're kind of messed up, like
Yeah.
as a society, like we just we like we like terrible things, and here we are.
What about you,
Yeah,
Mike?
I kind of agree with that. I think that, it's sort of the train wreck. You want to get as close as you can to it, um, but do it safely, right? You want to sort of see
Yeah.
this sort of underbelly of, the way that the things that humans can do, but you want to do it in the safest way possible. And I think just narrative storytelling lets you really get in there and see the gritty nature of the human beings without, being in any danger.
Right. It's always been the draw to horror, right? Is that you can enjoy the most awful things from a very safe distance between, a screen and yourself. There's nothing really, I mean, although I did see someone that said they play a prank on people at the airport where they keep a video of The Ring on their phone and they'll just airdrop it to random folks to just mess with them. So I don't know, maybe there's some people just want to watch the world burn, but um, it does give you a safe space to enjoy something that is quite awful and certainly does speak to our worst tendencies as a species. Um, and when you think about the style of art you wanted to curate for Murder Podcast, Mike, was there any specific aesthetic you were going for, or even some direction you were getting from Jeremy about what this should look like, or was it pretty much up to your own devices and inspirations to bring it forward?
Yeah, I think it was the mandate was just sort of do it how you naturally do it, right? And so I do have a sort of a cartoony style from 20 years of animation, and but I think Jeremy was sort of looking for that aesthetic with it. And I mean, for me, the main thing was just try to do it as well as I possibly can with how I do it, and just see how far I can push things before I get pushback. And so it's yeah, take that the cartoonier aspect of my style and apply it to this sort of dark, violent story.
And it's the best thing. I mean, there's a reality to this that like um as an illustrator myself, I draw a lot of dark, disturbing horror things all the time. And I wanted to see Mike do this. It was absolute intentionality. I wanted to work with him, and seeing this in his style, it, he does this thing where he captures actual moments of character, and then you care so much about these people, and then terrible, terrible things happen, and it's that much more shocking. It's that much, it's perfectly elevated. Um, every single page that comes in, it's I like, for being, as much of an uh old bearded, man as I am, like I'm sitting there giggling as I get pages from him, and it's always, somebody getting something stabbed through their face or something like that. And it just makes me happy.
I think there is something to be said though about how it can help with how we receive particularly violent acts and information when it is presented in a way that isn't going for the truly kind of photorealistic or kind of life, true to life look of things, because that makes it, that makes it real in a different way. Whereas I think comic book, cartooning or even comic book style illustration allows for things to be presented that are, you know, awful and bad, but also allow our brains to see them differently as maybe more entertaining than they would be. It's almost like the Terrify movies, right? Those are, um, they're not to be taken seriously because the human body just can't take that much pain. Like it would, you pass out or die of blood loss before most of these things would end up getting to
Right.
their end state. But, the fact that you reach a point where like, all right, well, this wouldn't happen. It allows you the
Right.
safety of just to enjoy it as disturbing entertainment as opposed to something that you genuinely need to be afraid. Like, I'm not worried someone's going to scoop my brains out, because I'll be
Right.
dead.
Right.
I'll be dead long by that point. Someone's trying to do that. So
Right.
they
Right.
have their way.
Absolutely.
Well, when this is the first release from Ignition Press, and I saw that you're working with quite a few different creators who also have industry expertise, Jeremy, on this, and I'm curious to know what kind of gaps you all see you're trying to fill within the industry, because it's been um, comics have a tendency to be very cyclical, like many trends do, where they'll kind of come up and then they'll kind of recede a little bit. So I'm curious to know, with this more creator-driven approach you're taking, what are some of the things folks can expect from Innocent Press, and also how Murder Podcast plays into it.
I think creator driven is actually the perfect thing, like the thing that we're going to hit on every single time. We want to tell the stories that creators need to tell. I think a lot of times, in my own career, even, you will run into a thing where you're trying to figure out what that publisher wants,
Mm,
what their particular kind of story is. For us, we just want to empower people to tell the stories they're supposed to be telling. I mean, if you look at our lineup, we, having everybody from uh, Cullen Bunn and Leah Williams, Jim McCann, Stephanie Williams, uh, Cy Spurrier, uh, and so many more that we haven't even announced yet. Getting to ask these people, like what's the story that you've been afraid to tell because you thought you were going to get a no because it didn't fit the lineup at a particular publisher. um, and hearing them be like, "Oh, I've got this," and then it's awesome. It's like the best, and even seeing people hit levels creatively that they've never had the opportunity to do before. It's such an exciting thing. Um, we, one thing about Ignition is that we don't, we're, unless it is something completely new and different, like we're probably not going to tell a lot of superhero stories. The reality of it is that, um, the last real superhero stories that we got were what, Invincible, like,
yeah,
like big one, like big ones
ones
that
that have
kind of like
become
we,
franchises
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. No, they're always new superhero stories, but like the ones that like really hit the way that you want them to were the boys and Invincible, right? I mean, and but part of that was because those had something absolutely new to say about superheroes and about the way that that works. And like, unless it's something that has something truly new to say, we'll let Marvel and DC and other companies handle that. Like, they got it. They got it down. Um, so yeah, I don't think we're gonna do a lot of superhero stuff, but man, we're gonna do so much other stuff. It's gonna be great.
I think that that's what's been the driving force, with my personal opinion, again, is the driving force behind keeping comics going has been that they have become more independent, and the stories have become far less derived from superhero and more about, some of them are just about the monotony of life. Others are about, taking a concept. I was just reading something from Image, where it's basically battle royale, but, far more stylized. And it's like, this
Hmm.
is, there's a space for all of this to play. And given that you both have worked with properties that have inherent fan bases, do you find that we're in a difficult time right now because of the internet and the way in which it has given everyone a voice to either say how much they love or don't love something? Has it been more difficult to even try and create under that framework of existing characters because you have to deal with some of the baggage of fandom and all that comes with that, well, with everyone's opinion these days?
Like,
Well, I mean, for me, I've mostly been in television. So everything that we do, when we hear from the fans, it was done a year and a half earlier, right? And so the show's done, everything's and it's great. And so, you know, at least on that side of things, I never really felt there was um, much influence from the expectation from fans. Maybe like on a show like Dragon Prince, where the showrunners and the writing staff they knew what the fan base loved about the show, and wanted to keep it on that track. But a lot of the shows that you know, at least that I've worked on, there's sort of a lot of the times by the time the fans find out that it's coming out, the shows we're long done. The writing
Yeah,
department, yeah,
not much you can change at that point, right?
no, yeah.
Not going to pull a Sonic and totally change the whole character midstream or something like that.
And not in the budget, yeah.
yeah. You know, I I do think that entertainment has really shifted a lot. The immediate feedback on things, and um, it's a positive thing to be able to hear what works and what doesn't and connect with your fans. Like, that's a lovely thing. But at the same time, it can get in your head. I think that that's part of the reason that I love telling my own stories so much. You can pour your heart and soul into what you feel is a personal take on Batman or Spider-Man or whatever it is. The reality of it is you've got, you know, decades and decades and decades of history and other stories that have been told and people's personal favorite takes and things that they hate. And they'll tell you all about it. They're entitled to. It's fine. But uh, when you tell your own story, it's personal to you. It's your take on something. And I want to be a part of joyous creativity. I want to invest my time and energy into making things with people that I like making things with for people that like the thing. It, that's special. That's where I want to be right now.
Yeah, I think like thinking of the food pyramid for a moment, when it comes to feedback, there's a certain amount of it that is healthy for you, and there's other parts that maybe you're not. And so it's trying to get as much of the healthy, constructive people that really want to see you succeed and, you know, tell you like, hey, like I see what you're going for, but you're going too far versus someone that's like, I used to watch this when I was a kid. Now I'm 40 years old and I have an opinion about it, right? I think that those
Mhm.
are two different mindsets that go into this. And I know, Mike, this is, this is, I believe, the first time you're doing a comic book in your career. And I'm just more curious to know what, if you grew up reading comics, which ones really inspired you? And do you see this as a medium that you'd like to keep coming back to in the future?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely would want to keep coming back to it. I did grow up. I mean, the whole plan, my life plan as a 12-year-old was to be a comic book artist, and then it went in different directions
And
for
life,
various
life, life
reasons.
happens, right?
Yeah, life happens, and but I grew up on Marvel comics and DC comics. I was, I think, 12 or 13 when Image Comics uh, started publishing, and so that became a big influence on me in the early mid 90s there. And yeah, that was always the plan, just to be a comic book artist, work for Marvel, work for DC, work, create our own stuff. And then I got impatient and went to film school to get a job. And yeah, just got rolling in animation. And there's always sort of a carrot being dangled in front of you, the next job. And so you just sort of stick with it and keep going. But yeah, when Jeremy contacted me about Murder Podcast, it just everything everything was lined up where I could hop on it and do it full time, and I was super excited about it.
And we're never going to let him leave now. It's like that moment in The Shining when he's like, "You've always been here."
Right.
There we go.
Mike's photo is somewhere on a big, from like the
Mhm.
70s. There's like his face somewhere in there.
Yeah,
I got
yeah.
Uh,
my
He's
thumbs up
he's
though. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. There's a bullpen shot from Marvel Comics with like Kirby standing there talking with Stan, and Mike's in the background pouring himself a cup of coffee. That's
Yeah.
that's we're gonna find that.
I mean, in good company to be sure. And I think that, it sounds like, Mike, that there's like, the career you chose allowed you to eventually get the freedom you wanted to create how you wanted to create. And I think that that's something that doesn't always come when people think about their dream versus their reality. Sometimes, you should never defer your dream entirely, but at the same time, if you can get back to it and allow your career to give you the freedom to grow in a different way, you know, sometimes that's
Yeah,
just how things go.
I always tried to just keep it in a pot on simmer behind me. It just took 20 years you know, to actually get back into it.
Better than 30, right? I mean, that's the
Yes.
uh,
Better than 30,
um,
better than never. Yeah.
right. And one of the things that is really interesting about this being is especially starting on a Kickstarter is most Kickstarters will kind of have a proof of concept, right? And they're like, okay, but you got to fund us, and then we're going to give you the stuff once we get things growing. You all have taken a different approach here, with you have the cold open approach, or essentially the zero issue, if you will, for the comic fans, where you're getting actually this ingestion into the world off the bat. Um, what kind of release schedule do you all anticipate going forward with this? Do you have a bunch of issues already pre-planned that you're like, we're just, once the backing's there, we can just start churning these out, or is there a limit to kind of how far you've seen this going up to this point?
Well, the book the book was always going to happen, regardless of crowdfunding. Like, for us, the cold open and the Kickstarter is about connectivity. Like, for we wanted to reach outside of the comics audience
Hmm.
and do something new and special. We were talking earlier about horror fans. Horror fans, like, the horror community is amazing. I have so much love for it. I love the comics community. I'm always going to love the comics community, but like, the horror community, doesn't matter if it's a horror movie or a horror video game, or a new horror musical. People they're gonna be curious about it. They're gonna want to check it out because we love the genre. I mean, everybody has their specialties and stuff. It's such a welcoming, exciting, weird place. And we wanted to tap into the individual communities. I'm like, uh I'm doing, murder podcast. We're doing murder podcast. It's a horror comic. The other book coming out is from Leah Williams. It's a like a sexy crime kind of thing, which has its own audience, and we're wanting to meet audiences where they are and tap into them, and then bring them in, kicking and screaming if we have to, into comics. We want to get people that never had an idea how amazing these stories are in, and show them what it can be. So to answer your larger question, we haven't announced how long the series is going to be yet, but it's the series itself starts this fall, and we're going to be coming out on an incredibly regular basis. And part of that is because of the way that we've built the company. Mike and I have been working on this book for almost 6 months now. I mean, building it
Wow.
out. Uh, he is currently drawing issue 3. I am writing issue 4. Um, we're both uh Mike has done 5. I don't want to spoil anything, but like the most joyous, wonderful, brutal covers that I've seen in forever. Again, talking about giggling when I got those pages, when I got those covers, giggling. Uh, uh, you know, we're able to build this out, and it's built for the long game. And like I said, he's working on issue 3. He's drawn 5 of the covers. He's got more coming. Like we're doing cool things, and we're making sure that we are rewarding the devotion that fans put into things. It's very important to us. We want to make sure that we're not going to do an issue and then be like, you have to wait a year. No,
Right.
we're going to have this thing ready for you. And especially as fast as Mike draws, I wish I could draw as fast as he does. He's a wizard with stuff. Right? We're gonna have this thing out.
That's amazing. I mean, especially the idea of I mean, I know there's going to be multiple covers, so it sounds like Mike, you're working on is it a few variant covers for some of these issues?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Jeremy's he's not to give anything away, but he pitched a pretty cool concept for a variant covers, and yeah, I just finished it up a week or two ago, and it was pretty cool.
That's rad.
Yeah, like we're not going to do a ton of covers. Ignition as the company, you know, it's very easy to kind of get into the thing where you know
Variants A through F or T or
it,
2T, something like
yeah,
that.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like, people need to run the game that they're running. Like, the industry wants what the industry wants, and I respect that, and we as a company do. But there is, we always kind of joked that, like, that's a lot of pressure to put on editorial and production whenever you're doing something like that. Like you want to like, you should see the faces of these editors that work on like the big hit, like tie-in projects that have like 20 variants. Like, and we joke that if the number of variants outweighs the number of pages in the comic, you did it wrong. Like, that's just
Yeah,
too.
that
That's
sounds like a
you're
problem.
you're traumatizing somebody in production along the way on those things. So yeah, it's just a couple of variants, just a little bit here and there. We really like encouraging the artists on the series to be doing a cover along with somebody else. You know, I'm um I'm glutton for punishment, so I love drawing covers on the books that I'm writing. I also don't get to draw as much nowadays because of how much writing I'm doing and my company responsibilities. So thing for me to be able to do. But yeah, just I cannot wait for you to see Mike's covers on their podcast. They are glorious.
Jeremy's are bangers as well. I've seen I've seen them, and they're pretty glorious.
Well,
Yeah.
I think between you both, it sounds like there's a pretty good, not just working relationship, but admiration for the craft of not just the writing, but also the illustration. And I think that there's, I tend to agree that once you get, it can be kind of almost superfluous to have all these different variants that almost attract away from the book itself. Um, but they do give a chance for people to see kind of different interpretations of the story. And I think the two that covers that are presented as part of the cold open are really interesting, very different, but give you two different flavors of what to expect with the story. And the last thing I'll ask you both, it's just a bit of this has very little to do with comics, but more curious, what's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you?
It's a good question.
You want me to go,
You
Mike?
go, Jeremy.
Okay, yeah. Um, it's a real turning point for me, turning point of fear for me. There are a couple things, but the one that comes to top of mind is May 16th of 1985. I can actually give you a date on this. May 16th of 1985. I was 9 years old, getting ready to turn 10, and my youngest brother William was coming. My mom was uh, dropped us off at their friend's house and said, "Okay, we're going to the hospital. We're going to deliver baby William." And it's the 80s, where adults were sitting in the kitchen smoking cigarettes and uh, drinking schnapps or whatever, and my middle brother Eric and their daughter were you know running around and being goofballs, and that evening I was sitting in this den on this luxurious orange shag carpet with no supervision at all, and The Shining came on HBO. And so 9-year-old me is sitting there alone watching this 2-hour masterpiece. And I was alone in a strange house. And so then it became bedtime. And I tried to fall asleep and tried to fall asleep, but all I could hear was little Danny Torrance going, "Red rum, red rum." And I kept waking up to see if those little girls were in the room, or if on the door that was written "Red Rum," or if Danny Torrance himself would be there. Um, I think that may have been like the scariest night of my life. And the weird thing about it is, it was a horror movie that triggered that, and it's literally one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I love it beyond anything. But I realized the thing that was the most scary was that it was me in my head imagining terrible scenarios, an axe coming through the door. Yeah, so that's my, at least for this time, scariest moment.
I got two real quick. One's interesting. So the first one, I used to be a delivery driver up north in British Columbia, Canada, in this place called Prince George. I used to deliver office supplies, office furniture, stuff like that. And it was the middle of the winter, and I'm driving down the four-lane main highway of town there. It's a pretty small logging town, about 70,000 people. And coming around in the intersection was a logging truck, and they didn't hitch up their trailer properly. So as he made a right-hand turn, I'm oncoming traffic, the trailer detached, flipped over the meridian, and started sliding towards me. And I was positive it was going to flip over and spill the logs all over my delivery van, crushing me and killing me. And in the moment, I remember thinking, I'm going to die. And because I was at the front of the line here with this accident, but luckily it didn't, and I survived. And the other one's interesting. I was a little kid. I was like 5 years old. My babysitter was putting away a deep fryer, and for some reason, my mom kept this deep fryer on the top shelf of the kitchen, and she just made my sister and her friends and myself fries. And as she was putting it away, she dropped it onto her head with hot oil in it. And there was all this commotion, ambulance, calling an ambulance. It was pre-911, it was the 80s in Canada. And she went off to the hospital. And the whole time I was in the dining room, which is connected to the kitchen while this happened. And so I was there for the whole thing, but I have zero recollection of it. So
Wow.
it was probably the most traumatizing thing that ever happened to me at the time. But my brain just said, no, I don't need this moving forward. And I remember her starting to put it away. I was eating fries, and then we were walking into the hospital to visit her. That's all. Everything else is just, there's nothing there. The two ends connect together.
I mean,
Oh my
it sounds like
gosh.
your brain was doing you a solid there by saying,
I
like,
think
yeah,
so, yeah.
you don't need to hold on to this for the rest of your life and let it define you.
Yeah.
But that's harrowing. And I'm glad that your babysitter was okay, because that's the kind of thing, you don't know how you're going to come out of that for sure. I can definitely resonate with the film things though. I think for me, watching it when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I wouldn't get off my bed for an entire 24 hours because I thought Pennywise was going to pull me right under. And so naturally, the embarrassment now of knowing that I was definitely wetting my bed on purpose because I didn't want to get off the actual bed itself. So, movies have that way about us, but there's nothing that compares to those real life moments of just shaking you up a little bit. The kind of things you would see or hear about in a true crime story. Well,
So
Poltergeist did it for me as well. The toys under the bed. Do you remember that? I think it was
yes.
Poltergeist.
uh
That was I don't know how many years of never being able to put my foot on the floor once I've gone to bed, never letting a hand hang over the bed.
And no trees outside of windows either. No,
Yeah.
thank you.
I want to go back to this, Mike. You almost got Final Destination.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Literally that scene in like that. Oh my gosh.
The staging was a
Uh,
little different, but they
I'm
were
gl-
both in the same lane. This thing was barreling towards me in my own lane.
I'm glad it was staged differently because you made it out of it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, there's an entire
Wow.
generation of people, myself, who will not drive behind log trucks because of that exact movie. And now knowing that this has actually happened, it makes the fears that much more real. Um, so, wow. First, I'm glad you all survived. That's the most important thing. And more importantly, appreciate you humbling me with some of the things that have just scared the absolute pants off of you. But I just want to say thank you to you both for taking the time to have the conversation today, Jeremy, Mike, and just remind everyone watching this that Murder Podcast is still taking some funding on Kickstarter. So we've got about 7 days for that. By the time this posts, about 6. So, and then look forward in the fall. The first issue coming out then, as well as the fall issues to continue. Can't wait to read it. Can't wait to see what it is beyond just what we get from the campaign page. And just want to thank you both again for the time, and wish you both continued success on this property and many others.
Thanks so much, Matt. Appreciate you.
Right on. Yeah, thank you.